and welcome to the Knittery. I'm Katie and this is Arlo, and today I have another podcast episode. It's been a little bit longer than my last one. July was full of a bunch of summer activities, summer vacations, and I was knitting a little bit less, and I also just wasn't home that much. And so I got back and I was like, yeah, I need a few more weeks. And then the past couple weeks, my knitting has spiked and I've been doing a ton of knitting. And so I feel like I have a lot to share today because it has been a little bit longer. But it was definitely on the back end that I've done almost all of this work because I definitely slow down a little bit in the summer as there's just more outdoor activities. So with that, today I am wearing the Esther vest. This is a pattern by Petite Knit that I made this year in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the color green tea. I complained a lot about making this and I just did not enjoy the process. I didn't enjoy the pattern. I never felt like I really had it down, and so the whole time I was like really thinking about, you know, is it a knit, is it a purl? But I love wearing it and I'm so glad I continued doing it and that I finished it. And honestly, I'm at the point where like I'm far enough out from making it that I'm like, I don't know, I could make another Esther item if I wanted to. So we'll see if that ends up being in my future plans. But for now, I just have the Esther vest. I'm glad I started with the vest because I don't know if I would have finished a sweater with how I felt about this the first time I made it. But it's been such a nice summer garment. Even though it's a wool, I think it's loose fitting and I like wearing it, especially when you're going to be indoors and it's going to be air conditioned anyway. And so, yeah. With that, I'll go into my finished objects. So before I left for vacation, which was the third week of July, I had no finished objects from the last one. And my last video, I took a little bit longer to publish from recording than I normally do. And so it was kind of crazy. That was like a really long amount of time for me to not have any finished objects, particularly because I always have a lot of items on the needles. So something is always kind of close to being finished. But then I got back and I was immediately able to finish my Brioche Bliss jacket, not cardigan. And I am so happy with the finished object. This is knit in Rerum Natura, Gilliat, sorry. And I love the yarn. I love how matte it looks. And honestly, the process was great. This is my first brioche object, and so for anybody who's afraid to do brioche, no, you can do it. It really isn't that bad. I think the fixing the mistakes is the hardest part, but actually doing it really isn't that bad, and it's not like it's super easy to make a mistake. It's just if you drop a stitch, that's where you're going to get into having to learn a little bit more and potentially having to go back a couple rows. The only modification I made is I did have to add a couple decreases on my sleeves to get them long enough. And this was fine because it's a wide enough sleeve so it wasn't like getting too skinny. But in brioche, you really see those decreases. Sorry, my hair is all over today. You really see the decreases. And so I was worried that if I just did more rows and didn't actually do the decrease, it was going to look weird just having decreases in the middle of the sleeve and then not either end because you don't start them until the middle of the sleeve. So I'm glad that the sleeve was wide enough for me just to easily be able to add that much more length with the decrease rate. But I think if you make this, just be thinking about it when you start the sleeve because you don't start them until midway-ish. And you could just go further before you start them. My friend actually made this alongside me, and that's what she did because I did my first sleeve and I was like, I'm gonna have to add more decreases. So she just went further and that worked out really well. One interesting thing to note about the pattern is there's a certain areas where every single size you knit the same amount of length. And you know, it's easy to just adjust the length. It's just like, it was basically like the body and the sleeves till that midway point. But when you're buying yarn, I think that's just something to think about because they're all the same and I don't think everybody is the same height or has the same length of arms. And so just be thinking about it and you know, when you're ordering your yarn. I think that's really the only time it's really going to come into play, or if you're making the garment for someone else. Otherwise, you're probably trying it on and you can see the length of your body and then adjust accordingly. One thing I didn't love was you do the double knit button band when you're making the garment, which I did like, but then at the bottom when you change needle sizes for the ribbing, you also change it for the double knit button band, and so it's skinnier at the bottom, and so it kind of like looks short there. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell in this, and I just don't know if I like that. And someone was telling me, they're like, no, I think a lot of store-bought garments kind of have that. And I cannot imagine it. So I haven't been able to wear this yet because it's still been very hot out and this is super heavy. But I don't know. I hope that it doesn't bother me when it's on. Oh, I guess I should note as well, because you do the button band while you're doing it, you do the buttonholes as you go. And so you have to really think about your buttonholes and how it just says how many inches to go in between them. And so you have to kind of think about that too if you're going to shorten or lengthen. I ended up like doing barely any rows after this last buttonhole because I was worried it was getting too long. And I'm like right at that mark. Like it's not too long, but I'm really glad I didn't do more rows before that. And the only thing that that I'm thinking about with this super low button is I am a French tucker. I love to do a French tuck. And so that button might get in my way a little bit. Sometimes you can still do it. So we'll see on that. That was one thing. And then I mentioned in my first video that I talked about this, that there's a lot of having to go to a YouTube video to learn how to do something and it not having written instructions, except for one of the videos, it additionally says, I did it wrong in the video, just do this, but it doesn't really explain it. And that's for this top buttonhole. And I did what I thought she meant because it didn't say. And I will say the button comes in and out, but it is hard to get in and out on this top buttonhole. So that's just something to think about as well. It's pretty easy to get out, but getting it in is actually hard because it is a double folded collar, and so you have to go through both of them. Yeah, I don't know. That's just something else to note. I think that's all I have to say about this. I cannot wait to wear it. The fit is great. It blacked out so nicely. I love the feeling of the yarn. I'll be really interested to see how it holds up, if it pills or not, since I didn't use any mohair. And then my buttons, I got them at an Etsy shop that I'll try and link below, because I've talked about also my problem with finding buttons, and I ended up doing an order and ordered like a bunch of different buttons from this shop, and they had so many, and it was super nice because you could buy singles, or depending on the button, you could get like a pack of 6, pack of 8, pack of 10, pack of 20. And so I have started my little button collection, so as I make cardigans, I have some. So that is my Brioche Bliss jacket. Super happy with the outcome. And as soon as I get a fall day here, I will be wearing it. And then I did not think I would be finishing this before I did another podcast episode, but just so happens I was able to finish my Sandro pullover. And am super happy with the outcome of this as well, but also have not been able to wear it. I mean, I just finished this, so I don't even think in the amount of days I would have been able to wear it since I finished it. But this is a cabled sweater, knit on 4mm needles, and a real pleasure to knit. I said in my last video, I was inspired to knit this because Two Pearls in a Pod, Paige, knit this, and I just fell in love with hers. And this is the yarn combo that she used. She did a dusty artichoke and I did navy, and that's knitting for olive merino, held with their soft silk mohair. And I am obsessed with this garment. I cannot wait to wear it. I think in the last few weeks of summer here in Michigan, it gets cold at nights earlier, and so I feel like it would be so cute with my white shorts and the navy sweater. So I cannot wait to wear it. I love my finished objects. That being said, the recommended yarn for this I think is Drops Daisy, which is just a DK weight yarn, and it's not supposed to be held with mohair. And a lot of people have made it in this, and it worked great, and I love it. But I can see the argument for why you should make this without mohair, and also why you should make this not in such a dark color, because it has such a beautiful texture, but you know, it's not that, it doesn't show up that well with that mohair halo and the dark color. And so I think if you really want, if this is going to be one of your first cable projects, you really want to show off cable work, maybe don't choose a mohair, or maybe don't choose a dark color or some combination of that, just because I do think it is really understated, which I'm okay with, but I know some people really want to show off those cables, and this is not my first cable project or most complicated project, so I think this will just be a staple, and I feel like it's a really timeless piece, especially in this navy. Didn't really have anything crazy about, oh, I did do one thing. I'm like, did I make any modifications? No, I accidentally made a modification. This was just user error though. You were supposed to knit X amount of centimeters until you started your decreases on this one, and I read that as inches. So that's a pretty big difference. But also I'm okay with it because it really isn't a big deal, and actually made it a little bit looser, which I'm happy about, because I didn't do decreases until about here, I would say, and I was supposed to start like way up here. So anyways, just a reminder to read if it's centimeters or inches. They are both listed in the pattern, and so the way that it shows it, the inches is like right, the IN is right under the 6, or like the number for, I actually don't remember for 6, for centimeters. And so I don't know, I just like read vertically, which is not how you read anyway. So other than that, I love it. I'm excited to wear it. The ribbing is all knit on 3.5 for the body and the sleeves, but it's knit on a 3 for the collar. And I wish I had done a 3 for everything. I'll talk about this later in a different whip that I'm working on. But I think on a DK weight yarn, specifically a fingering held with a mohair or a lace weight, I just find it so much neater, and I really like the look of the 3mm needle for the ribbing. And so I think moving forward, I'll probably opt for that a lot more often. It's navy, so you really can't, you know, it doesn't look that, you can't like see the detail so much in the ribbing, so I don't think it's a big deal. But I do think that the collar work looks much neater. So super excited to do this one. Blocking was such a pleasure on this one because I was able to put it outside, and so it dried up so fast rather than having to do it indoors, where sometimes wool takes a while to dry just laying there. All right, those are my finished objects. Moving on to whips. This is where I feel like I started to get a little crazy in the last couple weeks. So I was able to finish 2 things, but then, you know, you cast them on so fast. So we'll start with something I already had on the needles, which was my Cumulus blouse O-neck by Petite Knit. And this is what I'm calling my travel project, because I bring this when I fly or go on any travel, because it's super tiny and transportable and easy to work on anywhere because it's just stockinette. Made a little progress on the body since the last episode. I think I was like about to split for the sleeves, and so I've actually done a decent amount. My last trip that I took for work, I ended up not bringing this because I was just like, I haven't knit in so long, like I haven't done a lot of knitting in so long, that I just like want to feel progress on a project. And this is a 3mm fingering weight yarn project. You don't feel progress very fast. And so instead I ended up bringing my Eucalyptus Monday sweater, which I'll talk about, just so that I could, you know, feel some progress and like I was actually doing something. And so this one hasn't got quite as much love, but I have brought it to a couple of social gatherings and stuff where I can just sit and knit on it and not have to look at it. And so I've brought it to some other places, and it's been nice to work on it, but not necessarily for that travel. So this is in the Tynn Line by Sandro in, I think the color is putty. It's their white color. I am now very unmotivated to make this because by the time I finish it, I won't be able to wear it until next summer. So I think this will just be a slow work in progress in the background, some stockinette when I need it until next summer. I don't think I'm going to be moving very fast on this. So can't wait for my little white tee for summer 26. Then I'll get to my Eucalyptus Monday. So this is what I ended up bringing on one of my work trips. and I brought it and had to finish. I did all the ribbing on the body and cast that off, and then I did probably about half of this sleeve on the trip, and then I finished the sleeve. And in fact, I thought I had finished the sleeve, and I picked it up to start filming, and I realized I actually do have to cast it off. So I do have to cast off the first sleeve, and then I'll just have to do that second sleeve. I am not someone who gets on Sleeve Island. I actually do not mind knitting sleeves. I actually really enjoy it. I always use shorties when I knit them. And the second sleeve is even better than the first sleeve because you don't have to be thinking as much because you already know how long you want it and exactly what you're doing. No decision making in it. And no, am I long enough yet? Am I long enough yet? You know how many decreases you're doing. You know how many rows you're doing. I love it. I haven't done this second sleeve yet because of my other whips that I'll discuss. And I'm kind of like, this sleeve will get done. I can't currently wear this. It's too hot. But I have no worries about it getting done. And so I think probably the next time I'm on here, this will be a finished object because I'm not worried about it sitting around because of that. This is, if I didn't mention, this is the Monday sweater by Petite Knit, one of my favorite all-time patterns ever. I love it so much. And this is in Knitting for Olive Merino with, well, lots of knitting for olive today, guys. And there's soft silk mohair in the color Dusty Artichoke. And I am making the size medium this time because I think it will fit my husband as well if I do that. So I made it a little bit longer. That's actually the big thing, is the length for him. And so we'll both be able to wear this, hopefully. I've done this before though, and then it just did not fit him. I made it my size, not his. So we'll hopefully be good on this one. The big modification, I do 5 raglan stitches instead of 3. And that, I take those 2 stitches on each side from the front and from the back, because at the end, when you split for the sleeves, I put them back on the body. And so if you're going to try this out, I take them from the body, I put them back on the body. I don't do like one from the sleeve or anything like that. So that's how I do that. My ribbing for the body and the sleeve is on 3mm, which is not what it's called for in the pattern. And this is why I think it looks so much neater, is my Mondays. My red Monday, I did the same thing, and I love it so much. If I'm going to make another Monday, which I will, I'm going to try and do the collar also on 3mm. I thought of this as I was knitting like way down in the yoke, and I was like, why don't I do the collar on 3mm? Because the only thing that I sometimes have issues with on the Monday sweater is the neck stretches out a lot, and I just don't love that. So that would probably help, which I did add rows on either side of the folded collar to help with that as well. So add rows here, 5 raglans. That's kind of my modifications for the Monday sweater, but really excited for this one. This is my 3rd Monday sweater, and every single one has been in different yarn combinations. So I think I'm going to continue that trend of I'm not allowed to do the same yarn combination for a Monday. I've already talked about how I kind of want, I'm also doing colors in them so that I can kind of see, what I wear and whatnot. So my bright red Monday, I have this one. So if anybody has a yarn that they've loved making a Monday in, or just a DK weight yarn that they love, or a combination of mohair and fingering weight, let me know because I'll be trying some different yarn combinations. And then eventually, I think I would need at least 5 to do this. I'll do a video on ranking those, or at least talking about the different yarn combinations in this pattern. I think that would be really fun and nice to kind of see different yarns all in the same pattern and kind of how they hold up as well. So eventually I will do that as well. I have some mohairs still that I'd like to try, but I think the fingering weight wool yarn is where I'm like, what do you guys like that's not knitting for olive? I'm genuinely curious on this question. Like, I am not trying to be unaware, but what are the cheaper yarns that you're using than knitting for olive that are still 100% wool? I know Drops has, a whole line, and I know there's some questions about how they source and where they come from, and so is it ethical or not? And, you know, depending on different budgets can depend on how you make those choices, which is completely fine. But I hear some people talking about how expensive knitting for olive is, and do not get me wrong, it is not cheap. Wool yarn is not cheap. This is not a cheap hobby. And I feel so lucky to be able to spend money on this and have that discretionary income to be able to do that. But I hear people talking about how expensive it is, but when I go and look at most other wool yarns, they're more expensive than knitting for olive. So I'm trying to figure out what people are using, and I'm really curious because I would love to make different things in different price ranges. I think I'd be more willing to gift more often as well if I had some of those. So would love to hear what people use that they love. That's 100% wool. Yeah, because I do find knitting for olive, when I start pricing out a sweater when I'm going to make it, it is cheaper than a lot of the other options I know of or that I have used. And so really curious. Please help a girl out and go knit yourself a Monday. Okay, 2 more, 4 whips. That's kind of where I try to keep my max at. I always probably have 2. I try to max at 4. I fell in love with Brioche with my Brioche Bliss, and so I immediately cast on the September sweater by Petite Knit, and this is in Double Sunday by Sandro, and I'll have to put the numbers of the colors in the, actually, I don't. In 2511, and then the Filcolana Tilia Mohair in color 336. This is my favorite mohair. It is so soft. I love it so much. So eventually this will be in a Monday. This is more expensive than the Knitting for Olive mohair. So this is one of my examples. And the Tynn Silk mohair by Sandro is also more expensive than the Knitting for Olive one. And so this is why I'm like, ladies and gents, what are we using? I am not a huge fan of the Tynn Silk mohair. I use it, but I find it kind of scratchy. So when I wanted to make this, I was like, okay, I really don't want to use that, but I wanted this color. And so I ordered this, and when it came, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if that's going to match well. You can see that's way warmer. The Double Sunday is way warmer, but it actually has blended so perfectly. The halo is amazing. I'm absolutely obsessed, and it's so soft. I cannot wait. Knitting process on this has been great. No notes. I do think for first-time brioche knitters, the instructions on how to do brioche were more spelled out in the Brioche Bliss jacket than in this Petite Knit one, which I thought was interesting. And I didn't go to any of the videos because I know how to do it, so maybe I just didn't read as carefully as well. But I always find that the Petite Knit patterns have amazing explanations, and it's still explained. I just feel like it was really laid out if you didn't know what it was talking about in that one. And so that'd be my only note if you're considering brioche for the first time. But I just love this shoulder detail. It looks so cute. And the collar is just amazing. I did the collar so fast on this. I've never done a collar so fast. I didn't even join it in the round, did the collar, because I just wanted to see what it would look like. So excited about this. Don't have a lot of notes. And it's knit on 5mm needles, so it's knitting up so fast. But that being said, this project is kind of sidelined. I have my stockinette project for when I need a stockinette, and then this was kind of my more focused knit, only because I really have to look at brioche. I don't have to look at it when I do stockinette. On the brioche, I still have to really look at it. And so even though it's easy and mindless, I do feel like my vision has to look at it a little bit more. And this is going to the sideline because in a moment of, I don't know, delusion, I was like, yeah, you know what would be good for my life right now? A test knit. No, really, the test knit application went out for Ozetta for her Shoreline sweater, and I saw it, fell in love with the pattern, and was like, I'll just apply, I probably won't get it. No, got into the test knit. And I know there's always discourse around test knits and what designers should and shouldn't do with them. And I'm kind of in the camp of like, if they are being, transparent about their expectations and what they're asking, up front before you apply, then it's kind of, you know, a knitter's choice if they want to participate with those rules, those guidelines. And so this is a pretty fast test knit. That's why I say this, is I think a lot of people would be like, whoa, not doing that, because it's a really short time frame. But this is her livelihood, and so I'm sure she wants to get that pattern out, and I can knit this. I'm just going to have to put some other projects aside, but I know I will be able to finish this in time, and so I'm so excited to be doing this, but I think everything is going to be paused a little bit. So this is my Shoreline sweater. Hopefully you can see the texture a little bit there. If you know Ozetta's patterns, this is kind of like the construction of the lake sweater, but with the pattern of her Seaway sweater. And I love the combo of those. I actually have yarn to make the lake's V-neck sweater, and that was going to be my next cast on. And so that is sidelined because I'm making a different lake's construction sweater. So I love how she named it Shoreline too, to be the ode between those two. And I have absolutely loved making it so far. It's been great. I made the saddles, I made them together. I think, you know, if that's something that you're up for doing, definitely try it out, so you don't have to knit one and then the other one. You just need to have 2 sets of skeins, and then I knit them on the same needles. But when you knit them, you kind of have that cable right at the edge, and I was kind of like, oh gosh, like that's going to be hard to pick up the stitches right on the cable. Amazing design feature, because I love how it looks with that that cable curve where you pick up the stitches. I think it's so beautiful. Can't wait to see how it blocks out, but I think it is just amazing. You really get that wave feature. This is what I'm knitting in. Knitting for Olive again. Heavy Merino in dark ochre, and then the soft silk mohair is in dark mustard. And it's actually kind of crazy that these aren't the same colorway name, because they are a perfect match. And Knitting for Olive doesn't have one another, like there's no dark mustard in this and there's no dark ochre in this, so I think they know these go together. But I think it's interesting because I have had even the Eucalyptus, where it is the same colorway, match less closely than these two match. But I went with this color because I really want just a rich yellowy brown fall color, and this is the perfect one. I'm so excited to wear this in the fall. It's obviously a really heavy sweater. It's on 5mm needles, and so I am excited to wear this in the fall with the fall leaves, go to the pumpkin patch. I'm dropping stitches. I think it will be so great. So because the timeline's kind of fast on this, this will definitely also be a finished object the next time that we speak, which is going to be amazing. But I am going to try and document my progress a little bit more on Instagram. So if you're interested in following along, you can find me on Instagram, and there'll be a couple photos there. I posted one of the saddles, and it was like the sunlight was coming into the house. It was so beautiful. But I do think it made the color look a little bit brighter yellow than it is. I would say it's a really dark mustardy gold color. Like, you know, somebody might look at this and just say gold, but it is kind of very earthy, whereas where I'd put in that mustard color. So excited for this. I just finished the back yoke, made no modifications. Don't foresee myself making any modifications because it's a test knit, but excited to be doing my first test knit and seeing kind of if I like the process and if I want to sign up for one again. And so it's been a beautiful process so far. That is all I have. I feel like that was actually a lot. I feel like I'm going to lose my voice if I continue to talk anymore. So thank you so much for being here. It has been so fun interacting with everybody and just hearing what people are knitting and their opinions on things. And so I always welcome healthy communication and conversation in the comments. And so would love to hear what you're working on or what you think about any of these patterns that I'm currently knitting up. But with that, thanks so much for following along, and happy knitting.